with Marindy. Welcome to Chatty Tuesday. I try and keep Tuesdays vlog free for talking about home education specifically. If you would like to hear more of those thoughts on home education, then please hit the subscribe button. And if you like what you hear today, will you consider leaving a like or a comment, or both would be fabulous, to let me know, just as I try and work out with this new channel which direction to go and what content to do. It really helps me to know what you, the viewer, want to hear more of, what you're interested in, and helps me keep engaged with you as well. So today's topic was born out of an experience that I had last Tuesday. Since last September, my son Joey and I have been participating in a coding group. Now we call it Retro Games Club because we're coding a retro game. It's supposed to be modelled on a retro arcade game. We're using various Mozilla programs in order to do that. So we've made sprites in Piscal. We've used Thimble as a way of sharing all our progress with our other teammates, and we've been coding in Phaser. Now, this particular group is the brainchild of one of the lecturers at Manchester Metropolitan University. I might be wrong, but I think in this particular instance, he has a grant to do community-based learning. And what that means is parents or adults learning with the children in order to meet an end. So when my friend sent me the email and said, look, are you interested in this? And I showed it to Joey. He said, oh, yeah, I'm interested in that. I'm not going to lie. Most of the time, it has been a real struggle for me as a parent to take him to this games club. And why that is mostly has to do with me. As the adult in this relationship, I have found my views on what I really believe about autonomous education and self-directed learners to be really challenged. It's great to have all these philosophies and have all these ideas, but when a child says they want to do something and then spends what looks like to you all their time mucking around or concentrating on something that doesn't seem to be a real high priority or is more involved in playing the games, it really challenges what you believe about autonomous learning and self-directed learning. So having that experience over the last couple of months, trying to figure out what I really believe. These are the 5 things that I think have been integral to this little journey that Joey's been on as a learner, and I've been on as a parent facilitator of his education. Point 1 is that learners need time. Often as parents, particularly of younger children, we seem to have a lot more time and patience for them to reach the milestones necessary to them. So we give them time to learn to eat, we give them time in their potty training, we give them time when they're learning to read and learning to write. But I think that sometimes as children get older, we kind of want to hurry them through everything. And I don't know that that is the best way to do things with kids, because I think that when they own things themselves, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, things just become a lot easier. But getting to that point needs time. We need to realise that with an autonomous and self-directed learner, that things may not happen straight away, and they may not happen in the time frames that we have jotted down in our diaries that we want them to happen in. The other thing is that not everything always happens in a linear or sequential way. Sometimes learning happens almost randomly. I have one daughter in particular with her maths. She needed very sequential building blocks for her maths. So I found for her, when we approached things holistically, so we looked at time and we looked at the whole of time. When we looked at addition, we looked at the whole of addition, rather than doing a bit of time and a bit of money and a bit of geometry and a bit of this. I found that she actually needed to understand a whole concept all at once in order to make sense of it, so that there was a big picture there. It wasn't just random bits of maths happening all over the place, but that it all kind of made sense to her. But that is not true of all children. Sometimes children will dip in and out of things. They might do a little bit of learning on this thing over here and a little bit of learning on this thing over here, and then not do anything on it for 6 months. And then they may come back to it. And each time they come back to it, they may revisit it a little bit, but then there will usually be this depth involved in taking it that little bit deeper for where they are developmentally. I think it is really important to realise that time is a factor when it comes to autonomous and self-directed learning. And sometimes, whether that be as parents, our time frames for how we would like things to happen, or whether that be time frames that are naturally occurring within a child, we need to be aware of those. Now, for Joseph, he's needed 6 months of going to that thing before he would dip his toes in the actual coding part of it. So he did lots of other things. I think that was a really important lesson for me, that things don't always happen right away or when I would like them to, but when they happen, they do happen well. The second thing that I think that we need to create self-directed and autonomous learners is space. I think kids need space, and that space happens in all kinds of ways. So it may be that they need time alone, it might be that they need time with you, it might be a physical space that they might need their own space, they may need space to process what is going on for them. One of the things that I really identified with Joey was that he didn't like to fail. Because he doesn't like to fail, he doesn't like to try sometimes. And so part of that 6 months journey for him has been giving him the space to emotionally deal with what is going on inside him. He needed 6 months of space in order to get to the point where he felt ready within himself to start doing that. To be put in the learning environment where you have the space to wrestle with all those emotions and those feelings and those fears and that are cropping up with you when you're trying to learn something new, I think is a real important thing to back off as a parent and give them the space to wrestle with those things. The third thing is they need a sense of investment and ownership about what they're doing. We don't live in a world where we can all just do what we want when we want it all of the time. There are times where we just have to do things for the sake of getting those things done, whether we like them, whether we're invested in them, whether we feel particular ownership of them or not. We just kind of have to get them done. But I think when we're talking about children learning really important things like learning to write, learning to read, tackling a new problem, say like coding, learning an instrument, that by and large that journey becomes a lot easier when there is something within the child that wants to do that thing. I would have to say that having home educated 5 children now, that I have taught children to read using a curriculum, and I have allowed children to learn to read at their own pace and time, and by golly, encouraging them to read when they're ready, when they're showing that internal motivation, and they've got that sense of ownership for the journey, has been a much more pleasant experience for both me and that child. The children that I've taught with a curriculum, when I've thought that they should know, sometimes it's been a real struggle, and sometimes that's not been really great for our relationship. I've been cross and I've been angry, and then they're feeling frustrated and upset because they're not getting it. In a home education setting, I'm not talking about school here. School doesn't have the luxury of doing that. But I'm talking about in a home education setting, life is just too short. I think when children take ownership of what they're learning, then there is less struggle, there is less friction, there is less negative emotion about it. The other thing that happens is that when things get harder for them, so, if they're learning an instrument and they reach a stage where it's a real challenge for them, when they own and are invested in that journey themselves, they are more likely to persevere and go past that stage. If they are doing something because the parent says they should do it, like most kids will push through because mum or dad says that I have to, but I suspect that the friction levels within them will be higher than if they're sticking with it and going through it because they are intrinsically motivated to get to the next phase simply because of the love of what they're doing. The fourth thing that children need is resilience. The best way I can define resilience is a bit like elastic, that when you pull it, it snaps back into shape. The things that life throw at us that stretch us, that pull us sideways, knock us about a little bit, we all have those things, but resilience is when you can snap back into shape despite those things happening in our lives. Now, I'm not talking about the fact that something horrible has happened to somebody and they can just get over it. Like, that is not what resilience is. But what resilience might be in that situation is knowing that in order to snap back into place, I need to take care of myself, I need to forgive myself, I need to look after myself, I need to have therapy, I need to set boundaries around my life. They are all the kinds of thoughts that happen to a resilient person. So it's not just to say, oh, something bad's happened, just snap back into place. It's about having the skills and the toolbox within us emotionally to say, okay, in order for me to snap back into place. Example might be a child has tried something for weeks, like they've been going to trampolining classes, which is something that I've watched Joey do for the last couple of weeks. He's been trying to master a somersault. I mean, week after week after week he goes and he's still trying to master a somersault, but each week he goes back and he still keeps trying. So there's a level of resilience within him that says, even though I fail, even though this seems to be dragging on, even though other kids that have gone on and got it quicker than me, even though I might look silly, even though the teacher still has to tell me the same thing, he is in an environment that has allowed him to feel all of those things. I don't know that he is feeling it, but let's say for the sake of this argument he is. He has been able to feel all those things and say, but you know what, I'm going to keep trying. That's what resilience does. It's that snapping back despite failure, despite not getting it right, despite horrible things happening to us sometimes. It's having the tools within us. I remember hearing a TED talk a couple of years ago that really revolutionised my kindness to myself, but then also my kindness to my children. And it was based on the concept of not being there yet. It's tacking that yet onto the end of the word. So I'm not good at coding yet. I'm not good at the piano yet. I'm not good at reading yet. Because the yet gives you permission to get there. That I'm not good at reading is a final statement, isn't it? Like, I'm not good at reading, I'm never going to be good at reading type thing. But no, I'm not good at reading yet lets us know that there's a new day dawning, that there's another chance to have a go, and that one day I'm going to be okay at that thing if I keep sticking with it. I think that's a big part of building resilience as well. Number 5, the last thing that I've got here is they need patient parents. They need parents that are in it for the long haul. They need to know that you are committed to their learning, even if it's going to take longer than what you expect it to take. They need parents that can model that for them, that it's okay to fail, that it's okay to make mistakes, that it's okay to need space to process something, that it's okay to take time with things, that learning often happens better when we take some kind of ownership. They need us to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. In the last 10 years, I have completely revolutionised how I parent. I've completely backflipped on my beliefs and how I think a child should be parented. And one of the crucial reasons for that is that old saying from the Hippocratic Oath that, in doing good, first do no harm. And I think that is ultimately what our children need from us. We are not always going to get it right as parents. We are going to make mistakes and we're going to screw up and we are going to get things so wrong, and that is okay because we are human and we are on a journey. What we do with that is the important thing. Do we say sorry? Do we make amends? Do we ask for forgiveness from our children? All of those things like that, to me, is a really crucial thing because we aren't perfect. We're not going to be perfect. We need to take the pressure off ourselves to be. We need to not create the atmosphere within our home that we're perfect and that we're on a pedestal either, because that's not good for your kids and it's not good for you. Ultimately, trying to make the parenting decisions that we make not cause additional harm than just the mistakes and failings that we make as parents. So in this situation with Joey, how I could have made this situation worse was to berate him each week. Now, we definitely had chats about what was going on in those lessons, but you know, if I'd walked out of there and said, "Oh, you're terrible, you're so embarrassing, your behaviour is, you know, I can't believe that you behave this way, and I take you there each week, and you know, this is how you repay me, is by not doing what you've been asked to do," and that isn't going to help him have the space, have the time, have the resilience to want to go back and try that again, because I've just added shame onto where potentially he's already feeling shame and guilt. I can have those same conversations in a way that doesn't further add shame and failure onto what he may already be feeling and struggling with in terms of the emotional journey that he's on in being out of his depth. Quick recap. What self-directed and autonomous learners need is they need time, they need space, they need to feel like that they have their own ownership over what they're learning and investment in what they're learning. They need the emotional toolbox to allow them to be resilient learners, and they need patient parents. They know that you are there, you have got their back, you are in it for the long haul. All those things like failure, mistake making, you've got their backs. So anyway, I have been Maria. I will see you next Tuesday for another Chatty Home Ed Tuesday. And I'll see you Thursday for something too. No idea what that'll be about, but yeah, catch you on the flip side.